we doing here? Let us change back to that. And hello. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you may happen to be. My darlings, my devil dogs, my didgeridoos. Good to see you all. I am Tad. I am back after a hiatus of a few weeks, and I will fill you in on some of that. As I mentioned online earlier today, I'm not going to be, I don't think I'm going to read anything tonight, in part because I wanted to kind of take a little bit of a poll and see what the regular listeners want to do. But in the interim, I will chat to you about what's been going on, and then I will explain to you what the parameters are that I would like to discuss with anyone who is willing to drop me back a response. So hang on here. Let me just make sure. All right, that we've got this stuff going on. All right, going on. We're going on. Anyway, so hello. Good to be here. God, I don't even remember when the last time. It must have been in May, late May, because we left the country around the 29th, I guess, of May or somewhere around there. Very, very nice to see you all again. First of all, well, virtually. I realize I am, at the moment, I'm looking at me, which is terrifying, but I'm fairly immune to it by now. But I am virtually looking at all of you and thinking of you. So I hope you're doing well. I got a chance, as I'll explain in a moment, to meet several of you in person or re-meet several of you in person and made several new friends as well. While traveling in Germany. It was just Germany this time. We didn't make it to Austria or the Netherlands as we have in previous trips. But it was still a lovely trip, and I will explain about that in a moment. I'm going to tell you what the current state of play is on various things that I'm working on. As you can see, I'm starting to get some kind of control over the office space here behind me. I have been systematically carrying out boxes of things and putting them in the garage. And one of the reasons this takes a long time is because these boxes have traveled twice in the previous year. So as a result, they are, God knows what's in most of them, and the things that people have written on them say things like Tad's books, which does not tell me whether that means books that I wrote or books that I use or books that I own, which are three very different kinds of books. And some of them belong in the office space down here, and some of them belong upstairs in our upstairs bookshelves, and some of them belong out in the garage, which is where a lot of, if not most of our books wind up. Certainly all my old copies of various things wind up out in the garage of various books of mine and translations, etc. So that's one of the things I'm working on. As you can see, you can actually see the walls a little bit now, and another week or two of this kind of stuff, and I should actually be ready to redecorate. Put the bookshelves back in, put the books, the research books back on the shelves, maybe do some other nice stuff, hang some of my pictures back up, etc., etc. So that will be exciting. Not necessarily for you guys, but it definitely will be for me to have it start feeling like my home office again and not so much like a collection depot for boxes, which is what it has been. So, let's see if people are showing up. And yeah, we got a few people on. Good. I see Ilva, I see Iris, I see Wouter, I see Sandra. We did finally get the book, Sandra, by the way. Thank you so much. Deborah got distracted by something and left it. I don't know if you heard this, but accidentally left the book in the bookstore where we had our get together that evening. And so we had to go back and track down the very kind people at the bookstore. I don't remember if that was Bookshop, Buchhandlung Schutt, but I think it might have been. But anyway, but they kindly sent it on to us, so we have now recovered the book. So thank you so much. Isaac, yes, good to see you too, Isaac, and Dirk. And Yes, lovely to see you all. And do stay near your keyboards. Well, actually, you don't have to do it tonight. I'll explain to you in a minute, but I'm going to ask you guys to give me some responses in a few. So, first off, so yes, so we went to Germany, and everything was fine. The flights were very fine. We actually traveled in these Dragonfly planes because we went with Condor, and the Condor Airlines. What's the word I'm looking for? The motif, the artistic motif of their planes are concentric stripes down the plane body, and they have a variety of colors. So they're white and then colored stripes all the way down the bodies. So ours were green, I think, both ways, but we saw many other colors: blue stripes, yellow stripes, red stripes. And the flights were very nice. I'm somebody who used to hate flying. I was phobic about it. I'm not that anymore, but I'm still never thrilled to have to fly for long distances. This is exacerbated by inflammatory issues, and the economy seats are not comfortable for most human beings, but certainly not those of us with inflammatory issues. But anyway, the flights were very smooth and nice, and everything worked great. And I loved those Dragonfly planes. We got into kind of looking in the airports, both in Frankfurt when we got in and in San Francisco when we came back, to look for other colors. We were playing collect the whole set. Or if you prefer a Pokemon motif, got to catch them all. We were look, oh, look, there's an orange one. Ooh, I didn't know they did the stripes in orange. Anyway, and we were calling them Dragonfly planes because we have dragonflies out in our back in our what's the word I'm wanting? Rewilded pool, which used to be a swimming pool and is now a pond for frogs and mosquito fish and things like that. Anyway, so flights, no problem, everything good. Germany was uniformly nice. Every place we went, we had a really nice event. I do have not a negative, but something else to say about the German tour in just a minute. It has nothing to do with the quality of the people or the audiences or anything to do with that. But I will get to that in a moment. We got to spend time with a lot of people that we really like, including our German publisher, Stefan Ascani, and his wife, Veronika, and their daughter, Lydia, or Ludia, as they pronounce it. And also got to spend a lot of time with Ilva, who is here with us tonight, of course. And despite the fact that not everything was good for Ilva at that time, but she was a lovely hostess, and we had a wonderful time being with her and getting to hang out. And we saw several more of you, like Chris and Sandra and various others, and made some new friends as well. Dirk, we saw Dirk. We saw a lot of people, and it will come to me as we go. And Petra. As mentioned before, I will tell you some things about that. Anyway, what else was I going to say? So the only problem with the whole trip, in a negative sense, was that right now, and my German friends out there will know this certainly better than I do. At the moment, the German train system is having a lot of problems. And this was very kind of shocking to Americans who haven't been there for 7 years, and we are used to that kind of clockwork precision of the German train system. And it was still better than anything we've got in the United States, I hasten to say, because we have horrible public transportation in the United States generally, because we made our commitment to cars back in the wake of the Second World War, and California in particular is completely built around freeways, which is fine if you've got a car. But for people who don't have a car, it's miserable. And it also means our cities in California are very spread out. They don't have things that are easily within walking distance for most people. They're not built up around neighborhoods in the way that, say, for instance, most European cities are, or East Coast cities, even in the United States, are built. They're built on this very spread out California, everything is freeways plan. And again, it's okay, again, leaving out the aspect of fossil fuels and pollution and all that. But in terms of sheer convenience, that's fine as long as you've got a car. But if you do not have a car, You are either going to just have to stay home, or God forbid, you might walk somewhere in Southern California and people will decide that you're probably a dangerous, crazy person because nobody walks in LA. So that's, but so there were problems with the German train system while we were there, which is not a big deal. If we were just there as tourists, I wouldn't have cared. But of course, when you're on a book tour, you have events that you are supposed to be in the next place. And basically, most days you get up wherever you finished the night before. But during the morning, occasionally the early afternoon, you're in the train station, you're heading out to somewhere else. And so you're arriving an hour or two, sometimes ahead of the thing that you're supposed to be doing. And they're actually, I didn't even realize this, they're actually selling tickets to these things, so which I did not know. One of the many things different in Germany than in the US, as far as I know. And so, that of course only amped up my levels of guilt and worry, because the last thing I wanted was for somebody to have paid for tickets and then have me not show up because we'd missed the train or something. But because of Ilva and our very kind publicity person, Mareike, we managed to get to all the gigs on time, and so that was okay. But there were a couple of times where we were running across train stations with our 50-pound suitcases, our 25-kilo suitcases, and regretting the fact that they had just changed the where the train stopped at the last possible moment, and we had to get all the way from one end of the train station to the other. So that was a little frenzied occasionally. But again, that's in part because you're so used to how good the German train system has always been in the past. And I've been traveling there with great frequency for 25 years or so. And you get used to sort of showing up 5 minutes before the train and walking right to it, getting on, it leaves on time, it gets to the next place on time. And to have it be different was kind of shocking and hard to get used to. Excuse me. So anyway, and then we had a lovely, lovely time seeing, people doing readings. I took 3 chunks from the beginning, from the first 2 chapters. I split up parts of the first 2 forward and first chapter of the new book, and that's what I read, and tried to rotate them a bit so that at least those people who were unfortunate enough to have to come see me twice wouldn't have to hear the same piece read again. I don't know if that always worked, but with the people that I knew were there, I at least could make it work. And so this was something I was going to mention. I mentioned Petra and Christina, who are regulars and are regular Sunday morning guests or visitors or whatever with these readings. And it's a perfect example of the other thing I wanted to mention about, which was a negative, but it's only a negative because of me, not because of any fault of Germany or the German readers. And I actually posted something on Facebook after this because we went out, we had a dinner with a bunch of people before the Berlin reading, and I was sitting across from Petra, and I recognized that I had met Petra before when I'd been in Germany. So, she was clearly familiar with me, and I remembered that I had met her before, and so, everything was perfectly normal because I meet a lot of people that I've seen on previous tours. And then partway through, I was talking to another young woman there, and I wasn't sure of her name, and it was Christina, but I called her something else, like Carolina, and she kindly and politely corrected me. And it was only 10 minutes later, I think, and we were all sitting there together. It was only 10 minutes later I realized, oh my God, this is Petra and Christina, who I see online, at least once a week because they tune in for the things. And this is, of course, we're in Berlin. Hello, that's where, hello, and by that point I was practically done with that part of the evening and about to go in and do something else. But I felt so stupid that I had to write something about it on Facebook and say to people, please. And this is the reason I'm sharing this now is not to shame myself, although that's never a bad thing to do because I'm a very, very wicked person. But for the next time I come to Germany, which may be, when Navigator's Children is translated into German, please, everybody, if you want to come up and say hi and stuff like that, you absolutely, you're not just welcome, it's an important part of these kinds of trips for me is getting to meet people. And, excuse me, it's important in a number of ways. It's important because people have taken the trouble to come and see me, whether reading or just signing or whatever, which is an honor for me. So I want to make sure and have contact with people whenever I can. But so I will always try and, have something to say and talk to and have questions for people who come up to me at conventions or signings or whatever. But it's even more important to me if I'm making contact with somebody that I usually only see online, that I know who I'm talking to. And it does it's not that I'm old and senile. I'm old, yeah, but not quite senile yet. But it is because in these situations, I'm meeting so many new people, and I'm meeting old people, not old people. I'm an old people. I'm meeting people that I have already known. I've met before. Sometimes I've met like 12, 15 years earlier. That happens a lot. People go, oh yeah, I came to see you in Mannheim, or in Bonn or somewhere back in 2011, which is lovely, but please, I implore everybody, if you come to meet me at something, please tell me where you know me from or where we know each other from. I mean, if we have an online friendship, if we met before and, you want to remind me of it or whatever, please do. As I said in my Facebook post, grab me by the lapels and say, Tad, you know me, I'm so-and-so. This was not Petra and Christina's fault at all. It was completely my being overwhelmed. I had just kind of wandered out of something and people were talking to me and I'm meeting people and I'm seeing people I haven't seen for a while, like Hannes from the Otherland Bookshop. And it gets very confusing and it's a lot of names and places and stuff. And plus, of course, I'm traveling with Deborah. So she was very jet lagged for a lot of that trip. So I'm kind of trying to keep a half an eye on her to make sure she's doing okay. Or should we put her in a cab and send her back to the hotel or whatever? And, trying to make sure that I make contact with whoever's in charge of the event that night and blah, blah. So I've got like all these things going around in my tiny little brain. So I do sometimes wind up in a situation where I'm talking to somebody that I should know very well. And it does not occur to me until later, much to my shock and embarrassment, that in fact I've been talking to somebody that I already know and I've been treating them like we're meeting for the first time. So I am being transparent about this because it's a kind of thing that is important to me. I don't ever like being in that situation, and so help me out. That's what I'm asking. I'm saying if you come and meet me, please don't hesitate to say, here's where we met. Here's, what you said to me before. Here's how much money you owe me. Whatever the case is, please feel free to remind me because you just never know what's been happening for the last half an hour in a situation like that when I'm on tour and how tiny my brain is. It's really tiny. So you gotta help me out. Anyway, but so I did finally realize who I was talking with, Petra and Christina, and not Carolina. And I don't know if I got a chance to confess that to them or not, but if you guys are listening tonight, hello, it was lovely to see you. You are both as wonderful as I knew you were, and it was completely my overwhelmedness. Okay, so what else? So anyway, it was a really nice trip. We had some really good signings and all that, and I have to say, as a writer, it is hugely boosting to the heart and the consciousness to get out and actually meet people who are reading the books. Because as I've said at other times in the past, it's very easy when you're when you're a hermit like me, for one thing, and you're at home all the time and you're working on things. And there are times when you just go like, does anybody even care? I'm busting my hump here and I'm getting depressed about something, and it's usually not to do with the book. It's just life is overwhelming me, or politics are making me, you know, suicidal. Not really. I'm not suicidal. Depressed sometimes, especially about politics. But, under those circumstances, to go out in public and have people come to see you, first of all, that's wonderful in and of itself. And have people say nice things. Deborah always used to say, you've got the best job in the world, because, like, if you were a police officer, you'd be seeing everybody on their worst day. And instead, you've got people literally only there because they want to tell you that they like what you do. And unless you're a complete and utter jerk, they will go away saying, I still like what he does. So it's a wonderful boost to the energy for any kind of creative person, I think. And it's just a huge reminder of, oh yeah, people are engaged. People do care about this thing that I do, and what a privilege, and take it seriously. It's one of the reasons, and I will tell you, it's from going out on tour and stuff and having people say, when's the next book coming? And things like that. That's one of the reasons I finish. I finish things because when I'm feeling like, oh, I'd like to take a month off, I've got those voices in the back of my head saying, when's the next one coming? And I realize that there are people literally waiting to find out what happens next. And that's a huge ego boost, but it's also, with great power comes great responsibility, as Peter Parker's Uncle Ben once said. So I love it. I love it. It's a wonderful thing. And lastly, on this particular subject, and I think I've said this to people before too, so forgive me for reiterating, but when I can see from how somebody's telling me about how they felt about one of my books, that they have the same kind of response to something I wrote as I have had in my life as a reader to the things that really mattered to me, that's an amazing feeling. And it is not so much a feeling of like, oh, aren't I wonderful? But it's more a feeling like, so now I am paying forward in the same way that the writers that I love, that I never got a chance to talk to, most of them, some of them I have, but a lot of them I never met. They died before I, was able to travel. Whatever the reason, some of them were dead a long time before I was born. I had a chance to say thank you to them. I would have if I had had a chance, but I didn't. But it makes me feel like, okay, I am paying it forward. I am part of a tradition of writing books and having people care about them, and etc. And even though I can't thank the people who made me feel like, oh, somebody understands me, or somebody wrote this story just for me, I can keep the tradition going. I can pass on my share of the bardic responsibility and hopefully inspire some other people to do the same thing. And then they too will get to have that wonderful feeling someday of like, wow, somebody cares about something that I made in the same way that I cared about the things that were really important to me. So anyway, German trip was lovely. We came back and our niece from England had come over to visit, and we thought she was going to be a few days after we got back, and instead she literally showed up the day we got back. We love Rhiannon. She's we have great nieces and nephews. But it was like I was in the mode at that point after 2.5 weeks of heavy interaction, and I try to be very present for everything when I'm meeting people on tour and making sure that nobody feels like, oh, he just blew me off, or oh, he was only half paying attention to me when I got to talk to him or whatever. I want people to feel like, because I feel this way, that you're important to me. If you're one of my readers, you're important to me. And I will give you what I can give you. But it's not surprisingly, there's energy involved in that. And by the time I get back from a 2.5 week trip, I just need to crash out. And instead, not happening. I came back to a ton of work, which I'll tell you about in just a moment. And then Rhiannon was visiting, which would have been lovely and was lovely in many ways. But of course, when you've got a relative in town from another country, you got to take them places. You know, you got to go to San Francisco, you got to go to Monterey, you got to do things like that because they're in town and they've never been there before and they want to see all the cool things that, you know, people always want to see. It's like, you know, first time I went to New York, I wanted to go to the Empire State Building. I wanted to at least see the Statue of Liberty. I wanted to go to Rockefeller Center and things like that. And, you know, so you got to do it. So we, you know, drove up to San Francisco and so Rhiannon could see the Golden Gate Bridge and, you know, all that stuff. So anyway, so that, while that was going on, while Rhiannon was in town, I also was trying to do the proofs of the Navigator's Children, the actual typeset proofs, which I had only found out about as we were like on the plane, and I was checking some of my last sets of messages before we went into airplane mode. And there was a thing from my publisher saying, oh, we've just sent you the proofs, which was the first I had heard about that. And I went, well, I am literally leaving the country, so I am not going to be able to do anything with them for more than 2 weeks. So whatever deadline I'm under, I'm screwed already. So I got back and had to dive into those. And again, thank God for people like Ilva and Ron Hyde and Jeremy Ehrman and Angela Welchel, who are all been helping me out with these things and did most of the work in the appendix, and you know, and Ron worked with Isaac Stewart to do the help with the maps, and you know, and thank God I had them, but there was still a ton of stuff that had to be dealt with all at the last moment. So that part I can now have closure on, although I do have one more copy of the proofs that I can look through if I want to. I'll try to find time, because at the same time, you know, I've got the proofs. I'm trying to finish up. I'm trying to get those proofs to Germany so they can start the translation process. I have the Last Ordinary Farm book is all but finished, but I'm going to have to do a rewrite based on Deb's editorial conference with me after she read my draft, because it was very different from the draft she gave me for a number of reasons. So I've got that I have to work on at some point. And I just got a box of 1,500 what are called tip-in sheets from England for a special edition of the Dragonbone chair, which all have to be signed. And signing 1,500 of those buggers is not so much that it's painful. It just takes a long time, and you have to be in one place, kind of just going sign, sign, sign. So that's all going on. And meanwhile, I'm itching to start the new book. But of course, I also have the office here to deal with, and we're trying to sell my parents' house, which thank God my brothers have been doing my brothers and sisters-in-law have been doing heroic work on. So I have been spared from a lot of that, but it is something we have to have meetings on and stuff, and because we're remodeling it and doing all these things. So it's been a fairly busy last few weeks since we got back from Germany, which is one reason you're only hearing from me right now for the first time. All right, so that's done. So Navigator's Children is on its way and is largely out of my hands. I will soon have the third, either you could call it Tinker Farm or Ordinary Farm book. That will be on its way and out of my hands, and I'll let you know more about the publication and how that's going to work out, because we may reissue all three books together, or depending on what we can convince the publishers to do when in America. And overseas, we have publishers already in Germany and England and the UK market, I should say, the Commonwealth market. So that's a few things. I'm continuing on with trying to finish up the stuff that we have to do in the house, because we're still, we moved in whatever it was, February or something, but there's still a ton of stuff we haven't done yet. So that's where I'm at. And that is a summation of the last few weeks. Again, those of you who took the time and trouble to come and hang out with Deborah and I in Germany during that trip, thank you so much. That really, I cannot tell you how much just meeting people and get, people that we already know, but even the new ones we didn't know, getting to hang out with them. And, it's lovely. It's really lovely. It's the kind of thing that, I hope 20 or 30 years from now, when I'm finally ready to snuff it, It's the kind of thing I will remember. You know, that and my family and the kindness of readers and the fact that people genuinely seem to get pleasure out of my books. Those will be the things I will be thinking about. I promise you, not. I won't be, thinking, oh, if only I had done this or if I had done that. No, I will be saying, God damn, I'm lucky. Okay, so now here's the last thing. I said it was going to be a short night tonight. I've already lasted till 1:30. So here's the last thing I wanted to check in. Although, let me just first see by now who else has showed up. So Maria, who was like the first person I met. Hello, Maria Henschke, or Henschke. Maria was the first person from online that I think I got a chance to meet. So Sandra, hello, Sandra. Good to see you. This is another Sandra. This is Sandra K. Andre, hello. It was lovely to meet you too. Mahmoud, and a pleasure. And there's Mark Redmond saying hello. Let's see if I've got any. As usual, I cannot see the comments. They're burying the comments. Who else has checked in? My friend Ivan has checked in. Hello, Ivan, and you and I still need to get together. Cliff has checked in. Hello, Cliff. Nikki, hello, hello. Sandra already said hello too. That's Sandra Theis. Maria Hinchke. Iris, good to see you, Iris. Julian, Sandra K. Or Kai, I don't know how you pronounce it. May Kretschmar, or Mai Kretschmar. Daniel Untitled. I like that. I don't know if that's an actual name or an online name or just it filled in. And Penny, hello. And Chris, of course, it was great to see you. There's Ivan. Hello, Ivan. So anyway, okay, so here's the other part. As I said, I'm not going to read tonight because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. Ultimately, I don't know if I can go on reading forever. I may have to find other things to keep myself and you guys entertained with, but I would like to continue with these kinds of get-togethers. So, in the interim, while we're still pondering what the long-term solution might be, I can read some other things. So here, I'm going to give you 3 potential options. And if you have any feelings about them one way or the other, I would like you to write a comment. It doesn't have to be right now. It could be at some time. You can add to the comments on this broadcast later on or whatever. And I'm also going to repeat this tomorrow or later today in the 7 p.m. reading, except it's not a reading, not this time. Anyway, so here are the 3 possibilities. Okay. There are other novels of mine that I have not read, including, I only read the first volume of the 4 most obvious things. I read only The Dragonbone Chair of that series. I read only the first Otherland, City of Golden Shadow from that series. I read only the first book, Shadow March, from that series. And I read only The Witchwood Crown from that series. So I could read the second volume. I don't want to put the whole thing on. In other words, read all of every volume of any of these series because of complicated, intellectual property concerns. But I could read another book from any one of those, or potentially all of them. So that's one possibility, is to read a second book. And if that's the possibility that you opt for, please suggest which one you would most like to hear next. That's one possibility. Another possibility is that I could read stuff by... What the hell is that? Why are there balloons? Did you guys see that? That was really weird. Yeah, here they come again. Is somebody hacked into my system? Anyway, the second... that was weird. The second thing is that I could read some works by other people in my field, both older, especially I given the chance, I would rather read some people that some of the folks out there have not had a chance to read because they're not contemporary. I'd like to read some, like maybe Roger Zelazny, some Theodore Sturgeon, some Ursula Le Guin, some James Tiptree, various folks like that, Philip K. Dick. some of the people that really were important to me and that I love and that the present generation may not be as familiar with. So that's possibility two, which is other science fiction and fantasy writers, especially ones who are not around to read their own work anymore. So that's number two. Number three, so we'll call those more Tad books. Call the second possibility other science fiction writers or other writers in a general sense, but you understand that I'm talking about science fiction writers and stuff like that, short stories, all kinds of things that maybe people haven't had a chance to read. Gene Wolfe, really interesting writers. That's possibility number two, is other writers. And then, of course, the third one is also other writers, but it's a different kind of other writers, which is there are a lot of really good, for lack of a better word, I'll call children's fiction. But, I'm talking about stuff like The Wind in the Willows, the E. Nesbit books. These were formative and important books for me when I was young. And even though, obviously, this audience is mostly all grown up, they're also just nice books. They're good books. Some of them will be ones that you've never heard of, like Kate Ceriti's The Singing Tree and stuff like that. So, but we'll call them children's books for lack of a better term. So those are our three possibilities for what I can read from in the near future. Other books of mine, books by other writers, which means other SF and F writers, and children's books. So if you would be kind enough to let me know which of those three possibilities, and this is not necessarily the full long-term what I'm going to do with my reading space, but at least for the next few months, it would certainly be something that I'll be doing. So let me know which one of those three, okay? And I've now said it about 2 or 3 times, so if you want to, just go back and look at the recording again, which will be on YouTube and on Facebook. On YouTube, thanks to Chris Fab, and on Facebook because that's where I do it. Okay, and that's basically it. That's basically what I wanted to talk to you about tonight. I'm not going to read, but I did want to say again, everybody who came to visit me while we were touring, thank you so much. That was a great pleasure. Please remember to tell me, hello, Tad, you look really fuzzy and stupefied, and you probably haven't had any sleep in the last 3 days. So here's who we are, or who I am, and why you might remember me, just as an aid to an aging writer. And then thirdly, I want you to, at least if you care, I want you to pick one of those 3 options, okay, on what kind of thing to read next. Because I would be perfectly happy to read any of those kinds of things. Either read the next Shadow March book, which I think is called Shadow Play, if I remember correctly, or I could read, as I mentioned, some Theodore Sturgeon or some James Tiptree or stuff like, writers like that, Fritz Leiber, that were really important to me and that I think you would enjoy. Or, as I said, I could also just read stuff like The Wind in the Willows and, things that I loved growing up that I think that you guys might also enjoy if you don't already know them, or might just enjoy being able to listen to. So let me know about which one of those 3 would be best for you. And with that, unless I've missed saying hello to somebody that I should say hello to, I saw, okay. No, these are already people putting in. Nicole, hello, I haven't said hello to you yet. But Nicole, you're a very nice person, but that is an absolutely unhelpful answer. I like all 3 options. That's not going to help me make up my mind. Anyway. No, I'm just teasing. Obviously, I'm not going to try and force an answer out of anybody. And ultimately, it'll be, maybe I'll mix them up. Maybe I'll mix and match. Unfortunately, if I start reading one of my books, they're long buggers. And that's going to take a while. Whereas if I read some shorter fiction or something, then we can mix and match a bit more. Anyway, I've said that a lot. But I think that is the point. I think I've hit the point now where I'm going to wrap it up for tonight. I'm going to say thank you. Good to see you all. It's nice to be back. I've missed doing this. I hope that we will continue to do this and we will find ways to entertain ourselves however that might be. I also would like to be able to incorporate more conversations with you guys into this. However that's possible, I'll have to look into that as well. Certainly the current system on Facebook that I've been using is hell on comments and me being able to see comments. But Chris Fobb and I will probably have a conversation sometime in the near future about maybe doing it directly through YouTube or something. So we shall see. So that is basically all I wanted to tell you about. I don't think there's anything else. I've given you the rundown on the exciting life of Tad. As you can see, well, maybe you can't see. As you can see, the cats are still here. Room is definitely starting to be cleaned up, but the cats are still happy, sitting on their cat tree. Dogs are happy. Oh, I haven't reported on the dogs yet. Johnny, of course, was very happy to get us back. He is still the most complicated animal I have ever lived with. And the longer I live with him, the more I'm convinced that that is true. He just has these layers of emotion that are really complex. And I think it's because he worries. And if you are a worrier, there's obviously many levels of things going on when you worry. There is the consideration of things that could go wrong. There is the hope that things go well. There is the tension between those. And I see all of that in John in a way that I never have with any of my other animals to anywhere near that extent, if at all. So Johnny is very happy to have us back. He's still his same complicated, weird self. Walter, the Chihuahua, is pretty doolally at this point, which I had thought. I've been using that word for years. I think I picked it up from Deb maybe, but definitely from English literature, if not from Deb. And I had always assumed, because of the ending, the lally part, I had always assumed it was Irish. I just figured it was something that had made its way into English slang from Irish. No, it turns out it's actually from Hindi, and that Doolally was an actual place. It was a mental hospital that the British troops went to before they were invalided back to England. So to say somebody has gone a bit doolally actually came out of 19th or 18th or 19th century India. So I learned that today. But anyway, so yeah, Walter's a bit doolally. He's still loving his life. He's enjoying his life, bless him, and will continue to do that. But he's also kind of off in his own world sometimes. And of course, he's mostly deaf now and doesn't see real well either. So it's not surprising. When I get to be his stage of decrepitude, I will probably also be living in my own world, and that's okay, because at least one thing that world will be well built. There will be a lot of detail. Anyway, so with that, I am going to say thank you all. Lovely to see you, even albeit virtually. I will be back at 7 p.m. to basically reiterate all this crap. So if you're not interested in hearing most of this crap again, it's not written down or anything, so it'll probably be slightly different, but it'll still be basically the same stories that I have to tell, or although I'll probably think of other things between these two broadcasts. But I will be back, as far as I know, next week, the regular times, and by then I will probably have figured out what we're going to be doing based on you guys letting me know if any of those three things sound particularly good to you. And I'm going to put the same question to the 7 p.m. crowd. And we will have an idea by then, by the time I put up the time, the schedule, the whatever next week. We will have an idea of what we're going to be doing, I hope. Well, I'll have to decide something. So anyway, so with that, I say thank you so much. Thank you for indulging me. Didn't go quite as early as I thought I would. I did make it to about 1:45, but I think I've worn out my welcome. So I will leave you with that thought. Please let me know where you would like to go from here, and tell you all how grateful I am to have you as my virtual and real world friends. And yeah, I will see you again next week. And well, I'll see some of you if you're really gluttons for punishment at 7 p.m. But I'll see the rest of you next week, the same time. And be good to yourselves. Be good to those around you that you love, and keep an eye out for those who might need your help, who otherwise are not particularly related to you, but maybe in your neighborhood, maybe your neighbors or whatever. So, and peace, and thank you all, and see you real soon.